The door slammed open. Every biker in the Hells Angels clubhouse reached for something. A pool cue, a bottle, a knife. But it was just a kid, 12 years old, drowning in a hoodie 2 sizes too big, sneakers held together with duct tape, a bruise spreading across his cheekbone like a purple storm. He didn't run, didn't cry, didn't beg. He looked straight at the most dangerous men in town and said 5 words that stopped every heart in that room. "Can I work here? Please." What happened next didn't just change his life. It exposed a monster who had been hiding for 20 years. Before we begin, subscribe to our channel and stay until the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The door groaned on rusty hinges. Every conversation died mid-sentence. Pool cues froze. Someone killed the jukebox. Marcus Stone Reeves looked up from his beer and felt something cold crawl down his spine. In 23 years with the Hells Angels, he'd seen men walk through that door with guns, with knives, with death wishes and desperate eyes. But he'd never seen this. A kid, maybe 12, drowning in a gray hoodie 2 sizes too big, sneakers held together with duct tape, the kind of repair job that spoke of survival, not style. His hands were shoved deep into his pockets, and his face was angled down, but not enough to hide the purple-yellow bruise spreading across his left cheekbone like a storm cloud. "Wrong address, kid," Razor's voice boomed from the back. A few others chuckled, already turning back to their beers and card games. But the boy didn't leave. He stepped inside, let the door swing shut behind him with a heavy thud that felt too final for comfort. Stone set down his beer. "I'm looking for work." The laughter died. "After school," the boy continued, his voice steady but quiet. "I can sweep floors, clean tools, organize parts, whatever needs doing." Razor slapped his knee so hard, his beer sloshed over the rim. "You hear that? Kid wants to join the crew. What's next? We start a daycare?" More laughter, louder this time. Someone made a crack about training wheels on Harleys. But Stone wasn't laughing. He was watching. 48 years on this earth, 20 in the Marines, 3 tours that left scars nobody could see. He'd learned to read people the way others read books, learned to spot fear hiding behind bravado, learned to recognize the look of someone who'd been broken and glued themselves back together with nothing but willpower. What he saw in this kid's face wasn't desperation. It was something harder. Determination wrapped around shame, held together with the kind of quiet strength that came from surviving things children shouldn't have to survive. Stone stood. His boots were heavy on the concrete floor. The room went quiet again. When the sergeant-at-arms moved, people paid attention. "What's your name?" The boy's chin lifted slightly. "Ethan." "Ethan what?" A pause, just a heartbeat too long. "Parker, Ethan Parker." "You live around here, Ethan Parker?" "Oak Street, yellow house with a chain-link fence." Stone's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He knew that house. Foster home. The Hendersons ran it, Derek and his wife Barbara. The place had a reputation in certain circles, though nothing official, nothing proven. Kids came and went. Social workers filed their reports and moved on. Nobody asked the hard questions. Nobody wanted to know. "How old are you?" 12. I'll be 13 in March." Stone walked closer. Ethan's shoulders tensed, but he didn't step back. Didn't flinch. Didn't drop his eyes. That told Stone more than any words could. "That's a nasty bruise," Stone said, nodding toward the boy's face. "I fell off my bike." "You ride a bike to school?" "Sometimes." "Where'd you fall? Street? Sidewalk? Gravel?" Something flickered in Ethan's eyes. Just for a second. Stone saw it, the calculation, the weighing of truth against consequence, the survival math that no 12-year-old should know how to do. "Does it matter?" "Yeah." Stone's voice dropped low. "It does." The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. The other bikers had stopped pretending not to listen. Even Razor had set down his beer, his smirk fading into something more uncertain. Stone made a decision. Tell you what, I need to check the garage, see what kind of work we've actually got. You wait here. Don't touch anything. Don't talk to anyone. Just sit. He pointed to a battered couch near the window, the one with springs poking through and stuffing leaking out like old wounds. Ethan walked over and sat down, hands still in his pockets, eyes fixed on the floor, but his spine was straight, still fighting. Stone didn't go to the garage. He went to his phone. You want to run that by me again? Joseph Bear Castellano's voice crackled through the speaker, rough from decades of cigarettes and heartbreak. Kid walked in off the street, 12 years old, asking for work. So tell him to mow lawns like a normal kid. Bear, Stone's voice hardened. He's got bruises, fresh ones, and he's from the Henderson place on Oak Street. Silence on the other end. Bear knew that name. Knew it the way you know the name of a disease that killed someone you loved. His own son had bounced through the foster system, 7 homes in 4 years, each one promising stability, each one breaking him a little more, until there was nothing left to break. Overdose at 17. The system hadn't killed Michael Castellano, but it had handed the needle to every demon that did. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Bear said. Make it 10. 2 hours passed. The clubhouse carried on around Ethan like he was furniture. Men came and went. Pool balls cracked against each other. Someone put the music back on, something old and growling about highways and heartbreak. Tina emerged from the kitchen. 63 years old, silver hair pulled back tight, arms like a longshoreman's from decades of hauling trays and breaking up fights. She'd been feeding the Hells Angels since before some of these boys were born. She set a sandwich and a Coke on the armrest beside Ethan without a word. The boys stared at them for 10 minutes. Stone watched from across the room, pretending to read a magazine. He saw the way Ethan's eyes kept flicking to the food, then away. The internal battle, the suspicion that anything given freely came with a price. Finally, Ethan reached for the sandwich. He ate slow, careful, taking small bites that he chewed thoroughly, like someone who'd learned not to waste food, like someone who'd learned that meals weren't guaranteed. When he finished, he folded the napkin neatly and placed it on top of the empty plate. Then he went back to sitting, back to waiting. Not once did he ask when Stone would return. Not once did he complain. Not once did he try to leave. Bear arrived looking like a thundercloud in leather, white beard bristling, eyes that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. Where is he? Stone nodded toward the couch. Bear stopped, stared. Something cracked behind his eyes, then sealed itself back up. Jesus, he's just a baby. He's a survivor. There's a difference. What's the play? Stone had been thinking about that for 2 hours. We bring him in, give him work, keep him close, document everything, times, dates, visible injuries, build a case that CPS can't ignore. And if CPS does ignore it? Stone's jaw tightened. Then we handle it ourselves. Bear nodded slowly. I want to talk to him. Go easy. He spooks like a wild horse. Brother, I raised a boy who flinched at shadows. I know what gentle looks like. Ethan looked up when the 2 men approached. His body went rigid, shoulders pulling in, but he didn't run, didn't look away. Bear lowered himself onto the couch across from him. The springs screamed in protest. I'm Bear, he said. You've met Stone. Guess you could say we run things around here. Ethan nodded once. Stone tells me you're looking for work. Yes, sir. Sir, Bear's mouth twitched. Haven't been called that in a while. Why work? Why not ask for money? Would have been easier. Something shifted in Ethan's face. Pride, maybe. Or stubbornness. The 2 looked the same when you were 12, and the world had already taught you that easy came with strings. I don't need money. I need work. There's a difference? Money runs out. Ethan's voice was quiet but certain. Work means I'm useful. Useful means I can come back. Bear felt those words hit him like a fist to the chest. He remembered Michael saying something similar once. Before the homes, before the drugs, before the needle in the cold bathroom floor. Useful means I matter, Dad, and nobody throws away something that matters. Bear had to clear his throat twice before he could speak again. Smart kid. All right, here's the deal. We've got work. Sweeping, organizing, cleaning tools. $10 an hour, 3 days a week after school. Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. 2 hours each day. Ethan's eyes widened. Just a fraction. Just enough. You show up on time, Bear continued. You work hard. You don't steal. And you don't lie. Ever. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Good. We start Tuesday. 4 o'clock. Don't be late. Ethan stood, nodded once, started toward the door. Ethan. He turned. Bear's voice was rough. That bruise didn't come from a bike. It wasn't a question. Ethan's face went blank. That careful mask sliding back into place, smooth and practiced, and absolutely heartbreaking. Tuesday, Bear said. 4 o'clock. The door closed behind him. Stone appeared at Bear's shoulder. Well? Bear watched through the window as the small figure in the oversized hoodie walked away. Shoulders hunched against the cold, head down, disappearing into a world that had done nothing but hurt him. That kid, Bear said quietly, is asking for a lifeline. And God help me, I'm going to throw him one. Even if I have to burn this whole town down to do it. Tuesday came cold and gray. Ethan stood outside the clubhouse door at 3:47, breath puffing white in the autumn air. He'd walked 3 miles from school, hadn't eaten since breakfast, half a granola bar that Derek's wife Barbara had thrown at him like scraps to a dog. His ribs ached where Derek's boot had caught him last night. Something about a dirty dish. Or maybe it was the look on Ethan's face. Derek didn't need much of a reason anymore. Ethan stared at the door. Turn around, part of him whispered. Go home. Don't make it worse. But what was home? A mattress on the floor of a room that smelled like mold and cigarettes. A lock on the outside of the door. Derek's footsteps on the stairs at 2 in the morning, heavy with whiskey and meanness. This isn't home, Ethan thought. This is just where I sleep. He knocked. Stone opened the door before the second knock. Punctual. Good. Come on. The garage was massive, big enough for 6 bikes and a truck, with tools hanging on pegboards that looked like they'd been organized by someone with military precision. The air tasted like gasoline and grease, and something that might have been hope. This is Wrench, Stone said, nodding toward a wiry man in his 40s, bent over a Harley engine. Faded tattoos covered his forearms, skulls and roses in words and languages Ethan didn't recognize. Grease was permanently embedded under his fingernails. Wrench straightened, studied Ethan with sharp eyes that gave nothing away. Kid's going to help with cleanup and organization, Stone said. Show him what needs doing. Stone left. Wrench stared at Ethan for a long moment. Broom's in the corner, he finally said. Start there. When you're done, I'll show you how we sort parts. Ethan got to work. He swept like his life depended on it. Maybe it did. Methodical, thorough, getting into corners that probably hadn't seen a broom in months. The physical labor felt good, honest, clean in a way nothing else in his life was, clean. Wrench pretended not to watch, but he noticed. The kid didn't cut corners, didn't complain, didn't check his phone or ask for breaks, just worked. After an hour, Wrench called him over. You know anything about engines? No, sir. Stop calling me sir, makes me feel old. Wrench pulled out a cardboard box filled with bolts, washers, and various metal pieces. These are engine components. Got mixed up when Razor knocked over 3 boxes like a damn elephant. I need them sorted by size and type. Bolts with bolts, washers with washers. Think you can handle that? Ethan nodded and sat cross-legged on the concrete floor, dumping the box out in front of him. Wrench went back to the Harley, but he kept one eye on the kid. 20 minutes later, he walked over to check progress and stopped dead. Ethan hadn't just sorted, he'd organized, created precise rows, lined things up by size with a kind of obsessive attention to detail that spoke of a mind craving order in a chaotic world. The parts were arranged better than Wrench could have done himself. "You're good with your hands," Wrench said. Something in his voice softened despite himself. Ethan looked up. For half a second, his guard dropped. Just long enough for Wrench to see the boy underneath, scared and hopeful and desperately wanting to be enough. "My dad used to fix cars. Before." "Before what?" The guard slammed back up, smooth, practiced. "Before he left." Wrench knew better than to push. He'd learned the hard way that some stories came out in their own time, if at all, and that patience meant more than prying. "Well," Wrench said, "if you want, I can teach you some basics, how engines work, how to strip them down and build them back up. Might be useful someday." Ethan's eyes lit up like someone had flipped a switch, like Christmas morning and birthday candles, and every good thing the world had ever denied him, all wrapped into one moment. "Really?" "Yeah, but only if you keep showing up and working hard." "I will," Ethan's voice cracked with intensity. "I promise." The garage door banged open. Bear walked in, his white beard catching the fluorescent light. He'd spent the last 2 days making calls, pulling strings, calling in favors from people who owed him, and people who feared him, and people who simply understood that when Bear asked for something, the request wasn't negotiable. "Stone tells me you walk home down Oak Street," Bear said without preamble. Ethan stood up fast, shoulders tense. "Yes, sir." "I'm headed that way. I'll walk with you." "You don't have to." "Didn't ask if I had to." Bear's voice was gentle but firm. "Grab your stuff." They walked in silence for 2 blocks. Bear's boots heavy against the sidewalk. Ethan's quiet steps barely making a sound. "You like working at the garage?" Bear asked finally. "Yeah, Wrench is teaching me about engines." "Wrench is good people, rough around the edges, but solid." Bear paused. "How's school?" "Fine." "You got friends there?" Ethan shrugged, which was answer enough. They turned onto Oak Street, and Ethan's pace slowed. Imperceptibly at first, then more obviously, like he was walking through water that got thicker with every step. The yellow house was 4 down, chain-link fence rusted and leaning. Through the window, Bear could see movement. A large man pacing back and forth, agitated, beer bottle in hand. Bear watched the boy's body language change, shoulders curling inward, head dropping, hands disappearing into pockets, like he was trying to make himself smaller, like he was trying to become invisible, like he was preparing to be hit. "Ethan," Bear said quietly, stopping a house away, "if things ever get bad, I mean really bad, you call this number." He pulled out a card with the garage's phone number scrawled on it. "Day or night, someone will answer. Understand?" Ethan took the card, stared at it like it was written in a foreign language. "Why are you doing this?" Bear's throat tightened. He thought of Michael. Always Michael. The boy with the bright eyes and the easy laugh who'd slowly gone dark. Who'd stopped calling. Who'd stopped believing anyone would come. "Because you asked for work instead of a handout," Bear said instead. "That takes guts. And people with guts deserve people who've got their back." Ethan nodded slowly, tucked the card deep into his pocket like it was something precious. "Thank you. See you Thursday, kid." Bear waited until Ethan was inside, waited until the door closed and the yellow light flickered on in a second-floor window. Then he pulled out his phone. "Stone, it's worse than we thought." "How bad?" "That kid changes when he gets close to the house. Whole body just shrinks, like he's already bracing for impact. I've made some calls, got a contact at CPS. Woman named Monica Reyes, owes me from my Marine days. She's willing to look into it, but she needs evidence, documentation, something concrete." "How long?" "Weeks, maybe more." Bear's hand tightened around the phone. He might not have weeks. I know. So we watch. We document. We keep him close. And if that bastard touches him again... Stone's voice went cold, flat. The voice of a man who'd killed before and would do it again if the situation demanded. Then we handle it our way. Thursday, Ethan arrived with a new bruise. This one was on his forearm, finger-shaped, purple and fresh. Wrench saw it when Ethan reached for a wrench, saw the way the kid's sleeve rode up, revealing marks that looked exactly like what they were. He didn't say anything, not directly, but he made sure Stone saw, made sure Bear saw, made sure everyone saw. That night, Bear didn't just walk Ethan home. He walked him all the way to the front door, stood there until Derek answered, reeking of whiskey and barely contained violence. "Can I help you?" Derek's voice was flat, hostile. "Just making sure the boy gets home safe. Lot of traffic this time of day." Derek's eyes narrowed. "He knows his way home fine." "I'm sure he does, but we like to look after our employees, make sure they're in good shape for work." The two men stared at each other. Derek was bigger, but Bear had something Derek didn't. The absolute certainty that he would tear this man apart with his bare hands, if given half a reason. "Thursday," Bear said, not breaking eye contact. 4 o'clock. He'll be ready." He turned and walked away. Didn't look back. But he heard Derek yank Ethan inside, heard the door slam, heard something else too. Something that might have been the beginning of an argument, or the beginning of something worse. Bear pulled out his phone. "Barker, you still got that bike that runs quiet?" "Yeah, why?" "I need you to do something for me. Tonight, and every night until I say otherwise." At 2 a.m., a motorcycle idled at the corner of Oak Street. The rider sat in the shadows, engine rumbling low, watching the yellow house with the rusted chain-link fence. Watching for lights that shouldn't be on. Listening for sounds that shouldn't exist. Ready. Inside the clubhouse, Bear stared at the ceiling of his room, unable to sleep. He kept seeing Michael's face. The last time they'd spoken, 3 days before the overdose, his son's eyes had been flat, dead, all the light gone out of them years ago. "You can't save everyone, Dad," Michael had said. "Some of us are already gone." But Ethan wasn't gone, not yet, not if Bear had anything to say about it. He reached for his phone, pulled up the photo Stone had taken of Ethan's intake paperwork, the one Monica Reyes had slipped them under the table. Derek Henderson had claimed he found Ethan abandoned at a gas station, a good Samaritan willing to foster. The social worker had called him a hero, but something about the story didn't add up. The dates were wrong, the details were thin, and there was a name in the file that nobody had ever followed up on. Sarah Collins, Ethan's biological mother, listed as whereabouts unknown. Bear stared at that name for a long time. Then he started making calls. Saturday morning, Ethan showed up at the garage with a split lip. Wrench took one look and had to walk away. Had to go outside and put his fist through a wooden fence post just to keep from driving to Oak Street and doing something that would land him in prison. Stone was calmer, colder. "Fall down again?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Yeah." "Where this time?" "Stairs." Funny thing about stairs, they usually don't leave knuckle marks. Ethan's eyes flickered. That familiar calculation. Truth against consequence. Survival against hope. "It doesn't matter," he said quietly. 4 more years and I age out. Then I'm free." 4 years is a long time. I've made it 12. What's 4 more? Stone felt those words hit him like a knife to the gut. 12 years. This kid had been surviving Derek Henderson for 12 years, had been beaten and broken and put back together with nothing but stubborn will and the desperate belief that if he just held on long enough, the pain would end. "Ethan," Stone said quietly, "what if you didn't have to wait?" The boy looked up. Something flickered in his eyes. Hope, maybe. Or fear of hope, which was somehow worse. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if there was another way, a better way?" Ethan's face went blank, that mask sliding back into place. There isn't. I've been through 3 group homes. Foster families don't want kids like me. I'm too old, too much baggage, too... He stopped. Too what? Too broken. Stone crouched down so they were eye level. His voice was rough, thick with something that might have been tears if he'd been the kind of man who cried. You listen to me. You are not broken. You are surviving, and there's a difference. Ethan stared at him. Those men in there, Stone continued, nodding toward the clubhouse. Every single one of them has been broken. War, prison, loss, addiction, things that should have destroyed them. But they're still here, still fighting, still living. He put his hand on Ethan's shoulder. Gentle, steady. You're not broken, kid. You're still in the fight. And as long as you're fighting, we've got your back. Ethan's lip trembled. Just once, just for a second. Then the mask was back. But something had changed behind it. Something small and fragile and precious. Something that looked like belief. That night, Monica Reyes called. I found something, she said. Her voice was tight, controlled. The voice of someone trying to stay professional while fury burned behind her eyes. What? Derek Henderson has moved 8 times in 12 years, always to a different county, always just before a scheduled CPS review. His initial reports are always glowing, but his follow-ups don't exist? Exactly. He's playing the system, collecting checks, moving before anyone asks questions. And Ethan's mother, Sarah Collins? Silence on the other end. Monica? She worked at Tina's Diner 20 years ago, had a baby boy. 6 months later, she disappeared. Nobody investigated, nobody asked questions. Just another single mother who moved on. Stone's blood went cold. You think Henderson? I think Sarah Collins is dead. I think Derek Henderson knows exactly what happened to her, and I think he's been using her son as a meal ticket for 12 years. Stone closed his eyes. Open them. What do you need? Evidence, documentation, testimony. Enough to get an emergency hearing and pull that kid out before Derek realizes we're on to him. How long? A week, maybe 2. He might not have 2 weeks. Derek's escalating. The injuries are getting worse. Monica's voice hardened. Then we move faster. Get me everything you can. Photos, dates, times, witness statements. I'll push this through if I have to wake up every judge in the county. Stone hung up, walked to the window, stared out at the night. Somewhere out there, a boy was lying awake, wondering if tomorrow would be the day it all ended, wondering if anyone would notice, wondering if anyone would care. Hold on, kid, Stone thought. Just hold on a little longer. We're coming. The next 3 days were the longest of Bear's life. Every morning, Ethan showed up at the garage. Every morning, there were new injuries. Small ones, a bruise on the wrist, a scrape on the cheek, a limp that he tried to hide. Derek was getting bolder, angrier. Something was building in that yellow house, something dark and violent that couldn't be contained much longer. Bear documented everything, photos, dates, times, statements from Wrench and Stone, and anyone else who'd seen the damage. He sent them to Monica Reyes, and he waited. And he watched. And every night, Barker sat on his motorcycle at the corner of Oak Street, ready to ride into hell if the moment demanded. Tuesday evening, the moment demanded. Ethan didn't show up for his shift. 4 o'clock came and went, then 4:30, then 5. Stone called the school. Ethan had been there that morning, left at the normal time. Bear called the house. No answer. Wrench called the police. They said they'd look into it. Said 12-year-olds run off sometimes. Said there was probably a reasonable explanation. There was always a reasonable explanation. Until there wasn't. At 5:47, Bear's phone rang. It was Barker. I'm at the house. Something's wrong. What do you see? Derek's truck is gone, but there's a light on upstairs. And I thought I heard... Heard what? Silence. Barker, heard what? Someone crying. Bear was on his motorcycle in 30 seconds. He made it to Oak Street in 3 minutes. Barker was waiting at the curb, engine idling. Stone pulled up right behind, Wrench and 2 other members flanking him like an army. The yellow house loomed in the fading light, paint peeling, fence rusted, windows dark except for one on the 2nd floor. "We can't just go in," Stone said quietly. "Not without cause. Not without—" The sound cut him off. A crash, glass breaking, then a scream, high and thin and absolutely terrified. Bear was off his bike before the echo died. "To hell with cause," he growled, and then he was running. Bear hit the front door with his shoulder, once, twice. The 3rd time the wood splintered around the lock and gave way. The smell hit him first. Stale beer, cigarette smoke, something else underneath. Fear, maybe. The kind that soaked into walls and never quite came out. "Ethan!" Bear's voice echoed through the empty downstairs. "Ethan, where are you?" Another crash from upstairs. Then Derek's voice, slurred and vicious. "You think you can hide from me? You think those bikers are going to save you?" Bear took the stairs 3 at a time. Stone was right behind him, Wrench at his heels. The door at the end of the hallway was closed. Locked. Bear could hear sobbing on the other side, could hear Derek's heavy footsteps, could hear the sound of a belt being pulled through loops. He didn't knock. The door exploded inward. Derek Henderson stood in the middle of the room, belt doubled over in his fist, face purple with rage and whiskey. Behind him, pressed into the corner between a bare mattress and a wall covered in water stains, was Ethan. The boy's arms were raised to protect his face. Fresh welts crisscrossed his forearms. Blood trickled from a cut above his eye where he'd been thrown against something. His whole body was shaking. But his eyes, God, his eyes. They weren't empty. They weren't defeated. They were terrified, but they were still fighting. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Derek spun around, the belt still raised. "This is my house. That's my kid. You got no right." Bear moved so fast Derek never saw it coming. 1 second he was standing, the next he was on his knees, Bear's hand around his throat, the belt clattering uselessly to the floor. "Your kid?" Bear's voice was barely human. "Your kid?" He squeezed. Just a little. Just enough to make Derek's eyes bulge. "You don't get to call him that. You don't get to touch him. You don't get to look at him. You understand me?" Derek clawed at Bear's wrist. His face was going red, then purple. "Bear," Stone's voice was calm, steady. "Brother, not like this. He was going to kill him." "I know, but if you do this, you go to prison. And that boy needs you on the outside." Bear's hand trembled. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to squeeze, to end this, to make sure Derek Henderson never hurt another child again. But then he heard it, a small voice, broken and barely audible. "Please don't." Bear turned his head. Ethan was still pressed against the wall, but his eyes were fixed on Bear. Not on Derek, on Bear. "Please," Ethan whispered, "don't go away. Not because of him. He's not worth it." Something cracked inside Bear's chest. Something that had been frozen for 8 years, since the day they'd found Michael on that bathroom floor. He released Derek. The man collapsed, gasping and coughing, hands clutching his throat. "Stone," Bear said quietly, "call Monica. Tell her we've got her evidence." Stone already had his phone out. Bear stepped over Derek like he was garbage and walked to the corner where Ethan was still huddled. He crouched down slowly, made himself small, made himself safe. "Hey, kid, it's okay. It's over." Ethan stared at him. His whole body was still shaking. The cut above his eye was bleeding freely now, dripping down his cheek like tears. "You came," Ethan said. His voice cracked. "You actually came." "Of course I came. I told you day or night someone answers." "I called," Ethan's breath hitched. "I called the number you gave me, but nobody picked up. So I thought maybe. Bear's blood went cold. He pulled out his phone, checked the call log. Nothing. Then he checked the card he'd given Ethan. The one with the garage's number scrawled on it. One digit was wrong. Smudged. Could have been a 6 or an 8. Bear had given him a wrong number. God! Bear's voice broke. Ethan, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The number was wrong. I didn't... It doesn't matter. Ethan reached out and grabbed Bear's sleeve. His grip was weak, but desperate. You came anyway. You still came. Bear couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. He just pulled the boy into his arms and held him while the sirens grew closer and Derek Henderson's curses faded into meaningless noise. Wrench appeared in the doorway. Cops are 2 minutes out. Monica's on her way. What do you want me to do with him? He nodded toward Derek, who was still on his knees, still gasping. Watch him, Bear said. If he moves, break his legs. Wrench's smile was cold. With pleasure, Stone crouched down next to Bear and Ethan. His voice was gentle. Ethan, I need you to listen to me. The police are coming. And then a woman named Monica. She's going to ask you some questions. I need you to tell her the truth. Everything. Can you do that? Ethan nodded against Bear's chest. What happens after? After, you're coming with us. You're never setting foot in this house again. Ethan pulled back, looked at Stone with eyes that wanted to believe, but had been burned too many times. Promise? Stone put his hand on the boy's shoulder. Kid, I've got about 100 felonies on my record, and a liver that's mostly whiskey at this point. I've broken a lot of promises in my life. But this one? He squeezed. This one I'm taking to my grave. The siren stopped outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the window. Ethan's hand found Bear's and held on tight. I'm scared. I know, but you're not alone anymore. You understand? Whatever happens next, you're not alone. The police came through the door with weapons drawn. Derek started screaming about trespassing and assault and his rights. Nobody listened. Monica Reyes arrived 20 minutes later. She took one look at Ethan's injuries, one look at the room, one look at Derek Henderson in handcuffs, and her face went white with fury. Get that piece of garbage out of my sight, she said to the officers, and get me a camera. I want every bruise documented. She turned to Bear. You compromised my investigation. You know that, right? Defense attorney's going to have a field day. He was going to kill him. I know. Monica's voice softened. And if I'd been 5 minutes slower with my paperwork, he would have. So let's call it even and get this boy somewhere safe. She crouched down in front of Ethan. Her voice was gentle, but direct. Ethan, my name is Monica. I work for Child Protective Services. I know you've had bad experiences with people like me before. I know the system has failed you, more than once, but I need you to trust me right now. Can you do that? Ethan looked at Bear. Bear nodded. Okay, Ethan said quietly. I'll try. That's all I ask. Monica stood. I've got an emergency placement ready. A family in... No. Everyone turned. Bear stepped forward. His voice was rough but steady. He's not going to another placement. Not another stranger's house. Not another system failure waiting to happen. Bear, there are procedures. To hell with procedures. That boy has been bounced around for 12 years because of procedures. He's been beaten and starved and broken because the system followed procedures. Bear's voice cracked. My son died because of procedures. Silence. Monica's face changed. Something shifted behind her professional mask. You're asking for emergency guardianship. I'm asking for a chance, one chance to do what I should have done for Michael. What I couldn't do because I was too busy following the rules. You understand the background checks, the home inspections, I understand all of it, and I'll do all of it. Tonight, tomorrow, whatever it takes. Monica looked at Ethan. What do you want? Ethan's voice was small, but certain. I want to stay with them. With Bear and Stone and Wrench. They're the only ones who ever came when I needed help. Monica closed her eyes, opened them, made a decision that would either save her career or destroy it. I'll make some calls, but tonight he's staying at the clubhouse, under your supervision. Any problems, any at all, and this arrangement is over. Understood? Bear nodded. Understood. They walked out of that yellow house for the last time. Ethan held Bear's hand so tight his knuckles went white. He didn't look back once. The clubhouse was lit up like Christmas when they arrived. Every member was there, standing in the parking lot, waiting. When Ethan got off Bear's bike, nobody spoke. They just parted to let him through, forming an aisle that led to the front door. Tina was waiting inside with a first aid kit and a plate of sandwiches. She took one look at Ethan's face, and her eyes filled with tears she was too stubborn to let fall. "Sit down, honey. Let me clean that cut." Ethan sat, let her work. His eyes kept darting around the room, like he was waiting for someone to tell him it was all a mistake, that he had to go back. Stone crouched down beside him. "You're safe here. Nobody's going to hurt you. Nobody's going to make you leave." "For how long?" "For as long as you want." Ethan's lip trembled. "What if I want forever?" Stone looked at Bear. Bear looked at Wrench. Wrench looked at the rest of the club, rough men with hard lives and soft hearts that they hid behind leather and tattoos. One by one, they nodded. "Then forever it is," Stone said. Ethan broke. 12 years of holding it together. 12 years of staying strong because weakness got you hurt. 12 years of surviving instead of living. It all came pouring out. He cried like he'd never cried before. Great heaving sobs that shook his whole body. Bear held him. Tina held him. Stone put a hand on his shoulder. Wrench stood guard at the door like a tattooed angel, daring the world to try something. Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. When the tears finally stopped, Ethan was exhausted, wrung out, empty in a way that somehow felt cleaner than the emptiness before. Tina brought him a glass of water. He drank it slowly. "We need to talk about something," Monica said quietly. She'd been standing in the corner, watching, waiting. "About your mother." Ethan went still. "My mother's dead. Derek told me she abandoned me at a gas station when I was a baby, left me there and never came back." Monica exchanged a look with Stone. "Ethan, we don't think that's true." "What do you mean?" Stone pulled out his phone, pulled up the photo of the old Polaroid. "We found this in Tina's diner, in the old employee records. Your mother worked there 20 years ago." He showed Ethan the picture. A young woman with Ethan's eyes, holding an infant wrapped in a blue blanket, smiling at the camera like the world was full of nothing but good things. On the back, in faded handwriting, "Ethan, 4 months, my whole world." Ethan's hands shook as he took the phone. "That's me? That's you, and that's your mother, Sarah Collins. She didn't abandon me?" "No," Monica's voice was soft but firm. "She didn't. She worked at that diner for 6 months after you were born. Devoted mother, everyone said. Loved you more than anything. Then one day she just disappeared. No notice, no goodbye. Left her last paycheck behind. Left everything behind." Ethan looked up. "What happened to her?" Nobody answered. The silence stretched. Heavy. Terrible. "We don't know yet," Stone finally said. "But we're going to find out." "Derek." Ethan's voice went cold. Flat. "Derek knows, doesn't he?" "We think so. He killed her. It wasn't a question. He killed my mother and then he took me. For 12 years. He's been collecting checks and hitting me and telling me she abandoned me. And the whole time," his voice broke, "the whole time she loved me. She never left. He took that from me. He took everything." Bear put his hands on Ethan's shoulders. "Listen to me. What Derek took, we can't give back. Your mother, those years, the childhood you should have had, that's gone. And I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry." He cupped Ethan's face in his rough hands. But what happens next? That's up to you and us. We're going to find the truth about your mother. We're going to make sure Derek pays for every single thing he's done. And we're going to give you the life she would have wanted you to have. How do you know what she wanted? Bear pointed to the picture. Look at her face. Look at the way she's holding you. That's not a woman who wanted her son to suffer. That's a woman who wanted her son to live, to grow, to be happy. His voice cracked. Let us help you do that, for her and for yourself. Ethan stared at the photo for a long time. Then he nodded. Okay. Tina cleared her throat. That boy needs sleep, in a real bed, not more talking. She was right. Ethan's eyes were half closed, his body swaying with exhaustion. We set up a room, Wrench said. Back storage. Painted it yesterday. Got a bed and everything. Ethan looked at him. You made me a room? Made you a room. Hung some tools on the wall. You know, in case you want to practice. Wrench shrugged like it was nothing. It's not fancy, but it's yours. Ethan stood, wobbled. Bear steadied him. They walked down the hallway together, past the pool table, past the bar, past the kitchen where Tina had fed hundreds of hungry bikers over the years. The door at the end was painted blue. Ethan's favorite color, though he'd never told anyone. Wrench had guessed from the way the boy's eyes lingered on the blue toolbox in the garage. Bear opened the door. The room was small, a single bed against one wall, a desk under the window, a pegboard with tools arranged neatly. On the desk, a lamp and a notebook. On the wall above the bed, someone had hung a framed photo, the Polaroid of Sarah Collins holding her infant son. Ethan walked in slowly, touched the desk, touched the tools, touched the photo. This is mine? This is yours. And I can stay? As long as you want. Forever, remember? Ethan turned. His eyes were bright with tears he was too tired to shed. I've never had a room before, a real one, with a door I could close. Bear's heart shattered into pieces. Well, you've got one now, and that door, he pointed, has a lock, on the inside. You control who comes in, always. Ethan crawled into the bed. The sheets smelled like fabric softener, something he'd never experienced before. The mattress was soft, too soft after years of sleeping on the floor, but good, so good. Bear pulled the blanket up. Get some sleep, kid. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Bear? Yeah? Thank you. For coming. For all of it. Bear had to look away. Thank you for walking through that door, for asking for work, for being brave enough to let us help. Ethan's eyes were already closing. She loved me, he mumbled. My mom loved me. Yeah, kid, she did. And now you do too. All of you. Bear couldn't speak, just nodded, just stayed there until Ethan's breathing went slow and even. Then he slipped out, closed the door gently. Stone was waiting in the hallway. He okay? No, not yet, but he will be. Monica called the DA. They're opening an investigation into Derek. Not just the abuse, the whole thing. Sarah Collins's disappearance, Ethan's illegal placement, all of it. Good. There's something else. Bear looked at him. What? Stone's jaw tightened. Derek's been calling someone. From the holding cell. Same number, over and over. Who? We don't know yet, but whoever it is, they're connected. Lawyers are already circling. Someone's trying to make this go away. Bear's hands curled into fists. They can try. Brother, I'm serious. Whoever Derek's connected to, they've got resources. This isn't some drunk foster dad anymore. This is something bigger. Bear looked back at Ethan's door. Then we'll be bigger. Whatever it takes. Whoever we have to fight. That boy is not going back. Not to Derek. Not to the system. Not to anyone who doesn't have his best interests at heart. Stone nodded. Agreed. But we need to be smart. Play this wrong and we lose everything, including him. Then we play it right. Bear walked back to the main room. The club was still gathered, waiting. He stood in front of them. You all know what happened tonight. You all know what that boy has been through. And you all know what's coming. Legal battles, investigations, maybe worse. Anyone wants out, say so now. No shame, no judgment. Nobody moved. Razor spoke first. Kids got guts. Walking in here asking for work. That takes something. I'm not walking away from that. Barker nodded. I've been watching that house for weeks, seen the lights come on at 2 a.m., heard things I can't unhear. Derek Henderson deserves whatever he gets, and that kid deserves better than what he's had. One by one, they spoke. One by one, they committed. When the last voice faded, Bear looked around the room at these men. Broken, scarred, flawed men who had somehow become the family a system had failed to provide. All right then, Bear said. Tomorrow we fight. Tonight we rest, because that boy is going to need all of us at our best. The meeting broke up. Men drifted off to their rooms, to their bikes, to whatever quiet places they went to process the weight of what they'd taken on. Bear walked to the window, stared out at the night. Somewhere in this town, Derek Henderson was sitting in a jail cell, making calls to people who could make problems disappear. Somewhere, a woman named Sarah Collins had vanished 20 years ago, leaving behind only a photo and a 4-month-old son. Somewhere, the system was gearing up to do what it always did, grind forward, indifferent to the lives it crushed beneath its wheels. But not this time. This time, there was a boy in a blue room with a lock on the inside of his door. This time, there were men willing to break rules and laws and bones if that's what it took. This time, someone was going to fight back. Bear pulled out his phone, dialed a number he hadn't called in years. It's me, he said when the voice on the other end answered. I need information, everything you can find on a man named Derek Henderson, where he's been, who he knows, what he's hiding. He paused. And I need to know what happened to a woman named Sarah Collins. 20 years ago, she disappeared. Nobody looked for her. I want to know why. The voice on the other end asked a question. Bear's answer was simple. Because her son needs to know, and because whoever took her from him is going to pay. He hung up. The night was quiet. The clubhouse was still. In a small room at the end of the hallway, a 12-year-old boy slept peacefully for the first time in years, dreaming of a mother who had loved him and a family that had finally found him. And in the darkness outside, the first threads of a conspiracy that had stayed hidden for 2 decades began to unravel. 3 days after the rescue, Bear's contact called back. You need to sit down for this. Bear was already sitting, in the garage, watching Ethan help Wrench rebuild a carburetor. The boy's hands were steadier now, his eyes brighter, but the flinch was still there. Every time a door slammed or a voice raised, his whole body went tight. Talk to me, Bear said quietly, stepping outside. Derek Henderson isn't who you think he is. His real name is Derek Hollis. Changed it legally 15 years ago, right after he moved from Pennsylvania. Why'd he change it? Because Derek Hollis was a person of interest in a missing persons case. Woman named Patricia Weber, girlfriend, vanished without a trace. No body, no evidence. Case went cold. Bear's blood turned to ice. You're telling me Sarah Collins wasn't the first. I'm telling you Sarah Collins might not have been the second. I'm still digging. But Bear, this guy's got a pattern. Gets close to vulnerable women, single mothers, no family, no support system. They disappear. He moves. Rinse and repeat. How many? I've found 3 so far. Could be more. Bear closed his eyes. Thought about Ethan sleeping in that blue room. Thought about all the years that boy had spent in the same house as a monster. What about connections? Stone said Derek's been making calls from jail. That's where it gets complicated. The number he keeps calling belongs to a law firm. Harrison and Associates, big outfit out of Denver. Corporate stuff, mostly. But they've got a guy on staff who specializes in cleanup. Cleanup. Making problems go away. witnesses who change their minds, evidence that gets lost, that kind of thing. Why would a firm like that care about a foster dad from Millbrook? That's the question, isn't it? I'm working on it. But Bear, be careful. Whoever's backing Derek, they've got reach, and they don't like people asking questions. Bear hung up, stood there for a long moment. Then he walked back inside and pulled Stone into the office. We've got a problem. Stone listened without interrupting. When Bear finished, his face was carved from granite. Serial killer. We pulled that boy out of a house with a serial killer. Looks that way. And someone's protecting him. Someone with money and lawyers and resources. Also looks that way. Stone ran a hand over his face. What do we tell Ethan? Nothing. Not yet. Not until we know more. And Monica? Everything. She needs to know what she's dealing with. This isn't just an abuse case anymore. This is something else entirely. Stone nodded. I'll make the call. He left. Bear walked back to the garage. Ethan was still there, bent over the carburetor, listening intently as Wrench explained the function of each component. You're a natural, Wrench was saying. Took me months to understand this stuff. You're picking it up in days. Ethan's cheeks flushed with something that might have been pride. I like knowing how things work. When you understand the pieces, you can fix what's broken. Wrench glanced at Bear. A look passed between them. Yeah, Wrench said softly. I guess you can. Bear cleared his throat. Ethan, can we talk for a minute? The boy's face changed immediately, that old fear creeping back. Did I do something wrong? No, nothing like that. I just want to check in, see how you're doing. They walked outside together, sat on the bench near the back door. The afternoon sun was warm, but Ethan kept his arms wrapped around himself like he was cold. The nightmares still happening? Bear asked. Ethan nodded. Every night? Most nights. I wake up and I think I'm still there, in that room, and I can hear him coming up the stairs. Bear's hands curled into fists. That's going to take time. The fear doesn't just go away because the danger's gone. Your body needs to learn that it's safe now. How long? I don't know. Different for everyone. Took me years after I came back from the war. Ethan looked at him. You have nightmares too? Used to. Bad ones. Would wake up swinging. Scared the hell out of anyone who got too close. How'd you make them stop? Bear considered the question. I didn't exactly. They just faded. Bit by bit. The more good days I had, the less power the bad memories held. You build a new life on top of the old one. Eventually the new one gets stronger. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Bear, can I ask you something? Anything. Your son, Michael, what happened to him? Bear's chest tightened. He hadn't talked about Michael in years. Couldn't. The wound was still too raw, even after all this time. But this boy was asking. This boy who'd survived things no child should survive. This boy who deserved the truth. Michael was in the foster system, Bear said slowly. His mother, my ex-wife, she had problems. Drugs. I was deployed overseas. By the time I got back, she'd lost custody, and Michael was already in the system. Why didn't you take him? I tried. God, I tried. But I had a record. Bar fights, assault charges. The kind of stuff that looks real bad on custody paperwork. They said I was unfit. Said he was better off in foster care. Bear's voice cracked. He wasn't better off. He was miserable. Bounced from home to home. Got lost in the shuffle. By the time he was 15, he'd stopped calling. Stopped believing anyone was coming for him. What happened? He found something to make the pain stop. Heroin. First time was at a party. Last time was alone in a bathroom. He was 17 years old. Ethan's hand found Bear's. Small, warm, steady. I'm sorry. Me too, Bear squeezed back. Every day. But here's the thing, Ethan. I couldn't save Michael. I got there too late. The system had already broken him in ways I couldn't fix. But you, he turned to face the boy, you walked into that clubhouse asking for work. Not money, not help. Work. You were still fighting, still believing. And that's something I'm not going to let anyone take from you. Ethan's eyes glistened. Sometimes I don't feel like I'm fighting. Sometimes I just feel tired. That's okay. You're allowed to be tired. You're allowed to have days where getting out of bed feels impossible. That's what we're here for, to carry you when you can't carry yourself. Why? You didn't know me. None of you knew me. Why would you do all this for a stranger? Bear thought about it, really thought. Because someone should have done it for Michael. Because every broken kid deserves someone in their corner. And because, he paused, because the moment you walked through that door, you weren't a stranger anymore. You were family. You just didn't know it yet. Ethan leaned against Bear's shoulder. That simple gesture of trust that would have been impossible a week ago. They sat there in silence, watching the shadows lengthen, listening to the distant rumble of motorcycles on the highway. Bear? Yeah? I want to know what happened to my mom, even if it's bad. I need to know. Bear put his arm around the boy. We're working on it, I promise. Whatever the truth is, we'll find it. Together. And Derek? Bear's jaw tightened. Derek is going to pay for everything he's done. Every single thing. That I can guarantee. Inside, Stone was on the phone with Monica Reyes. His voice was low, but urgent. You need to dig deeper into Derek Henderson's background. Real name's Derek Hollis. Changed it 15 years ago after a woman disappeared in Pennsylvania. Monica's sharp intake of breath was audible. Are you serious? Dead serious. My guys found at least 3 women connected to him. All disappeared. All cases went cold. My God. It gets worse. Someone's paying for his defense. High-powered law firm out of Denver, Harrison and Associates. They're already trying to make this go away. That doesn't make sense. Why would a corporate law firm care about a foster dad in Millbrook? That's what we need to find out. Silence. Stone, if what you're telling me is true, if Derek Henderson is some kind of serial predator with powerful backing, this is way bigger than CPS. This is FBI territory. Then get the FBI involved. It's not that simple. I need evidence, not rumors, not hunches. Hard evidence that connects him to these disappearances. What about Sarah Collins? We know she worked at the diner. We know she disappeared. We know her son ended up with Derek. That's circumstantial. A good lawyer could explain it away. A good lawyer is exactly what he's got. Monica was quiet for a moment. There might be something else. I've been going through Derek's file, his foster care records. Something doesn't add up. What? The timeline. Derek claimed he found Ethan abandoned at a gas station when the baby was 4 months old. But according to hospital records, Sarah Collins gave birth at Millbrook General. The birth certificate lists the father as unknown, but there's a witness signature. Who? That's just it. The signature is illegible. But the printed name underneath, Stone heard papers rustling. The printed name is D. Henderson. Stone went cold. Derek was at the hospital when Ethan was born. He was more than that. He signed as a witness, which means he knew Sarah Collins, knew her well enough to be there for the birth of her child. So his whole story about finding the baby at a gas station was a lie. He knew Sarah. He knew Ethan. And whatever happened to her, he was involved from the very beginning. Stone hung up, walked to the window. Bear was still outside with Ethan. The boy was laughing at something, actually laughing, head thrown back, face open and free. Stone didn't want to be the one to tell him, didn't want to be the one to explain that the monster who'd hurt him for 12 years had probably killed his mother. But Ethan deserved the truth. They all did. That night, the club gathered in the main room. Ethan was in his room, doing homework. The door was closed, but Stone still kept his voice low. Derek Henderson knew Sarah Collins, knew her well enough to be at the hospital when Ethan was born. His whole story about finding the kid at a gas station was fabricated. Razor swore under his breath. Son of a bitch was in on it from day one. Looks that way. Monica's digging into the connection. But here's the thing, we can't just wait for the system to work. We've been down that road before. Bear spoke up. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we do what we do best. Ask questions, find answers, make sure Derek Henderson never sees the outside of a prison cell. And if the lawyers try to make this go away? Stone's eyes went hard. Then we make sure they can't. Wrench leaned forward. I know a guy, works at the county recorder's office, owes me for a transmission job I did cheap. He might be able to pull records, property transfers, financial transactions, anything that connects Derek to Sarah Collins. Do it, Barker raised his hand. I've got contacts in Pennsylvania, old writing buddies. They can ask around about this Patricia Weber case. See if anyone remembers anything. Do it, Bear stood. And I've got a meeting tomorrow with the lawyer from Harrison and Associates. He called, wants to talk. Everyone went silent. You're meeting with them? I want to know who's behind this, what they want, why they're protecting Derek. Bear's voice was steel. And I want them to know that whatever game they're playing, we're not going to roll over. Stone nodded slowly. Take Razor with you, for backup. I was planning on it. The meeting broke up. Men dispersed to their various tasks. Stone walked to Ethan's door. Knocked softly. Come in. The boy was at his desk, math textbook open, pencil in hand. He looked up when Stone entered. Everything okay? Yeah, just wanted to check on you. I'm fine, really. Better than fine. Ethan set down his pencil. I actually did my homework tonight. All of it. Usually I was too tired or too scared to focus, but now I can think. For the first time in years, my head isn't full of noise. Stone sat on the edge of the bed. That's good, kid. That's really good. Stone? Yeah? I heard you guys talking, in the main room. Stone's heart sank. How much did you hear? Enough. Derek knew my mom. He was at the hospital when I was born. Stone cursed himself for not being more careful. Ethan, it's okay, I'm not upset. I mean, I am, but not at you. The boy's jaw tightened. I always knew something was wrong with Derek's story. He told me my mom dumped me like garbage. But sometimes late at night, I'd remember things. Just flashes. A voice singing to me. Hands holding me gentle. The smell of flowers. His eyes glistened. She loved me. I knew it even when he told me she didn't. I could feel it somehow. She did love you. We have proof of that now. And Derek took her from me. We think so. We're not certain yet, but I'm certain. Ethan's voice was hard, older than his years. He took everything from me. My mom, my childhood, 12 years of my life. And he would have taken more if you hadn't stopped him. Ethan, I want to help with the investigation. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're looking for, I want to be part of it. Absolutely not. This is dangerous. These people, I'm not afraid of them. Ethan stood. His small frame was rigid with determination. I spent 12 years being afraid. Afraid to speak, afraid to run, afraid to hope. I'm done being afraid. Stone looked at him, really looked. Saw the boy he'd been 3 weeks ago. Broken, bruised, barely surviving. Saw the boy he was becoming, still hurt, still healing, but fighting. You're not going anywhere near Derek or his lawyers. That's non-negotiable. But if there's something else, something safe, maybe we can find a way. Ethan nodded. That's all I'm asking. A chance to be part of this, to help find justice for my mom. We'll figure it out, together. But for now, homework, then sleep. You've got school tomorrow. Stone? Yeah? Thank you for not treating me like a little kid, for telling me the truth. Stone put his hand on Ethan's shoulder. You've earned it. Every bit of it. He left the room, closed the door, leaned against the wall and let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. That boy was going to be the death of him, or the salvation. He wasn't sure which. The next morning, Bear and Razor rode into Denver. The Harrison and Associates office was on the 32nd floor of a glass tower that screamed money and power. Bear felt eyes on him the moment he walked through the door, his leather cut and boots a stark contrast to the suits and polished shoes. "Mr. Castellano?" A man in his 50s approached. Silver hair, perfect teeth, eyes like a shark's. "Marcus Webb, thank you for coming." Bear didn't shake his hand. "Let's make this quick. What do you want?" Webb's smile didn't waver. "Direct. I appreciate that. Why don't we step into my office?" The office was all glass and chrome. Webb settled behind a desk that probably cost more than Bear's motorcycle. "Coffee? Water?" "I want answers, not beverages." "Fair enough," Webb folded his hands. "I represent certain interests who are concerned about the situation in Millbrook. The allegations against Mr. Henderson, the involvement of your organization." "You mean the Hells Angels?" "I mean a group of men who have taken an unusual interest in a foster care case." Bear leaned forward. "Let me be clear. Ethan Parker is under our protection. Derek Henderson is never getting anywhere near him again. If that's a problem for your interests, then your interests can go to hell." Webb's smile thinned. "Mr. Castellano, you're a man with a record. Assault, battery, association with known criminals. If this custody matter goes to court, those facts will come out. A judge might question whether a child should be placed with someone of your background. Is that a threat? It's a reality. Courts care about appearances. And frankly, your appearance is problematic." Bear stood. "Here's another reality. Derek Henderson is connected to at least 3 missing women. Your firm is paying for his defense. That means either you didn't know who you were protecting, which makes you incompetent, or you did know, which makes you complicit." Webb's face went blank. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Patricia Weber, Pennsylvania, disappeared 15 years ago. Derek was a person of interest before he changed his name and ran." Bear pulled out his phone, showed a photo. "Recognize her?" Webb's eye twitched, just slightly, just enough. "We're done here." "Yeah, we are." Bear headed for the door, stopped, turned. "Tell your clients, whoever they are, that this isn't going away. We're going to find out what happened to Sarah Collins. We're going to find out what happened to all of them. And when we do, whoever's been helping Derek cover it up is going down too." He left. Razor was waiting in the lobby. "How'd it go?" "They're scared, trying not to show it, but they're scared." "Good. Yeah." Bear pushed through the revolving door. "Now let's find out why." Back at the clubhouse, Monica Reyes was waiting. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. "We need to talk. Now." They gathered in the office. Monica closed the door. "I got a call from a contact at the FBI. They've been watching Derek Henderson for years, part of a larger investigation." "Into what?" "Human trafficking." The words hung in the air like poison. "They think Derek was part of a network, targeting vulnerable women, single mothers, runaways, women nobody would miss. What happened to them? They don't know, not for certain, but they have theories." Monica's voice broke. "Bad theories, the kind that keep you up at night." Bear thought about Ethan, about the 12 years that boy had spent in that house. Did the FBI know about Ethan? No. Derek kept him separate, used him for cover probably. Nice family man taking in foster kids. Who'd suspect someone like that? The FBI knew Derek was involved in trafficking, and they didn't stop him? They were building a case, trying to get to the people above him, the network, the money. And while they were building their case, women were disappearing. A child was being beaten. Monica flinched. "I know. Believe me, I know. The system failed. Again. Like it always does." Bear slammed his fist on the desk. "Then the system doesn't get another chance. We handle this ourselves." Bear, no, I'm done waiting, done hoping, done trusting people in suits to do the right thing. He looked at Stone, at Wrench, at Razor. We find the truth, we expose it, and we make sure everyone responsible pays. Every single one of them. Stone nodded. What do you need? Everything, every connection, every transaction, every secret Derek Henderson has been hiding for the last 20 years. He turned to Monica. You're either with us or you're not. But if you're not, stay out of our way. Monica was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone. I have files, things I'm not supposed to have, things that could end my career if anyone found out. She held it out. I'm with you. Bear took the phone. Then let's get to work. In his room, Ethan sat with the Polaroid of his mother in his hands. He traced her face with his finger, tried to remember her voice, her smell, the feeling of her arms around him. The memories were there, buried deep, fragments of a life he'd been told never existed. But it had existed. She had existed, and someone had taken her away. Ethan set the photo down carefully, picked up a notebook, started writing. Everything he remembered about Derek, every strange comment, every late-night phone call, every visitor who came and went without explanation. 12 years of observations, 12 years of survival. It was time to turn that survival into something else. It was time for justice. Ethan's notebook changed everything. 3 days after he started writing, he walked into Stone's office and dropped 47 pages on the desk. Handwritten, detailed, dated. What's this? Everything I remember, every visitor Derek had, every phone call that woke me up at 2 in the morning, every time he told me to stay in my room and not come out no matter what. Stone picked up the notebook, started reading. His face went pale. Ethan, some of these dates go back years. I have a good memory, especially for bad things. The boy's voice was flat. Conclusion. Page 23. There's a name, a woman. She came to the house when I was 8. Derek called her Maria. She stayed for 3 days. Then she was gone. I never saw her again. Stone flipped to the page. You heard them talking? I heard everything. The walls were thin. Derek thought I was asleep, but I never slept. Not really. What did they say? He told her she'd be safe, that he knew people who could help her disappear, start a new life. Ethan's jaw tightened. She believed him. Stone set down the notebook. Why didn't you tell anyone before? Who would I tell? The caseworkers who visited once a year and never looked me in the eye? The teachers who saw my bruises and pretended they didn't? The cops who drove past that house every day and never stopped? His voice cracked. Nobody wanted to know, so I stopped trying to tell them. Stone stood, walked around the desk, put his hands on Ethan's shoulders. I want to know. We all want to know. Everything you remember, everything you can tell us, it matters. You understand? Ethan nodded. Good. Now let's go through this together, page by page. They worked for hours. Stone asked questions. Ethan answered. Monica joined them, recording everything on her phone, her face growing more horrified with each new detail. By the time they finished, the sun had set and Ethan's voice was hoarse. There's one more thing, the boy said quietly. Something I've never told anyone. Monica leaned forward. What is it? The basement. Derek's basement. He kept it locked. Always. Said there was nothing down there but old junk. But sometimes, late at night, I'd hear things. What kind of things? Crying. A woman crying. Maybe more than one. Ethan's hands trembled. I told myself I was imagining it, that it was just the pipes or the wind. But I knew. Deep down, I knew. Monica grabbed her phone. I need to call the FBI, right now. She left the room. Stone stared at Ethan. How long did you hear those sounds? Years, off and on, sometimes nothing for months. Then it would start again. A few days, a week, then silence. And you never went down there? The door was always locked, and I was scared. Ethan's voice broke. I was so scared, Stone. What if someone was down there? What if I could have helped them and I didn't? Hey, Stone crouched down, eye to eye. You were a child in an impossible situation. Whatever happened in that house is not your fault. None of it. But if I had... No, listen to me. You survived. That's what you did. You survived and you remembered. And now you're helping us find the truth. That's more than most people could do. Ethan wiped his eyes. Do you think they'll find something? In the basement? Stone didn't answer. He didn't have to. The FBI moved within hours. 20 agents, search dogs, forensic teams. They hit Derek's house at 3 in the morning while he sat in a county jail cell with no idea what was happening. Bear watched from across the street, Razor beside him, Wrench on the other side. The whole club was there, waiting, watching. How long until we know something? Wrench asked. Could be hours, could be days. Depends what they find. And if they don't find anything? Bear's jaw tightened. Then we find another way. But they did find something. At 7:42 a.m., an FBI agent emerged from the house. His face was gray. His hands were shaking. He walked to the command vehicle, spoke to someone inside, then more agents started moving. Faster now, more urgent. Monica appeared at Bear's elbow. They found a hidden room, behind the water heater, soundproofed. The lock was on the outside. Bear's stomach turned. What else? DNA, hair, fibers, evidence of multiple people having been kept there over the years. Bodies? Monica shook her head. Not yet, but they're expanding the search. There's a property about 10 miles out, used to belong to Derek's father. Abandoned farmland. They're heading there now. Bear thought about Ethan, about the sounds he'd heard through the floor. The crying that he'd convinced himself was just the wind. Does Ethan know? Not yet. I wanted to wait until we had something concrete. Good, keep it that way. At least until we know what we're dealing with. Monica nodded, started to leave. Stopped. Bear? Yeah? That boy might have just cracked the biggest human trafficking case in Colorado history. His notes, his observations, they're filling in gaps the FBI has been trying to fill for years. He's 12 years old. He shouldn't have to be part of this. I know, but he chose to be. And because of that choice, people who've been missing for decades might finally get justice. She walked away. Bear stared at the yellow house with the rusted chain-link fence, the house that had held so much darkness, so much pain. Soon it would be torn apart, every board, every nail, every secret dragged into the light, and Derek Henderson would never hurt anyone again. At the clubhouse, Ethan was trying to act normal. He was in the garage with Wrench, working on the same carburetor they'd started days ago. His hands moved mechanically, but his mind was elsewhere. You want to talk about it? Wrench asked. Talk about what? Whatever's got you looking like that. Ethan set down his wrench. I keep thinking about them. The women. The ones who came to the house. What if they're still alive somewhere? What if they're waiting for someone to find them? The FBI's got this. They know what they're doing. But what if they don't find them in time? What if... Hey, Wrench put his hand on Ethan's shoulder. You did your part, more than your part. Now you've got to let the professionals handle it. I don't know how to do that. Just wait. Just hope. Yeah, well, welcome to being human. Most of life is waiting and hoping. The trick is finding something to do in between. He gestured at the carburetor. Like rebuilding engines. Keeps the hands busy while the mind works through the hard stuff. Ethan managed a weak smile. Is that why you work on bikes all the time? That's exactly why. Started after I got out of prison. Needed something to focus on besides the bad choices that put me there. You were in prison? 7 years. Armed robbery. I was young and stupid and thought I knew everything. Wrench shrugged. Stone gave me a chance when nobody else would. Now I'm giving that chance to you. Why? Because everyone deserves a second chance, even the people who never got a first one. Ethan picked up his wrench again. They worked in silence for a while, the familiar rhythm of tools and metal, the smell of grease and oil. Then Ethan spoke again. Wrench? Yeah? Thank you for treating me normal. Everyone else looks at me like I'm broken, like I might shatter any second. Kid, I've seen broken. You're not broken. You're bent. Bent can be straightened. Ethan nodded slowly. I hope so. The call came at 4:17 p.m. Bear answered on the first ring. We found them. Monica's voice was thick with emotion. Found who? Remains at the farmland property, multiple burial sites. They're still excavating, but so far they've identified at least 4 individuals. Bear closed his eyes. Sarah Collins? We don't know yet. DNA testing takes time. But Bear, one of the victims was wearing a necklace, a silver locket with a baby photo inside. Bear's throat closed up. A baby photo. We think it might be Ethan. The age matches, the timing matches. If it is, then Sarah Collins was wearing her son's picture when she died. Yes. Silence. Who's going to tell him? Monica asked. I will. He deserves to hear it from someone he trusts. When? Tonight, after the official identification. I'm not putting that boy through this unless we're certain. I understand. I'll call as soon as we know more. Bear hung up, walked to the window, stared at nothing. 4 victims, at least, maybe more still buried in that cold ground. And one of them might be a young mother who'd loved her son enough to wear his picture around her neck until the very end. That evening, the club gathered again. Ethan was in his room, supposedly doing homework. But Stone had checked. The boy was just sitting on his bed, staring at his mother's photo. We need to prepare for what comes next, Bear said quietly. When the identification comes through, Ethan's world is going to fall apart all over again. He's strong, Razor said. Kid's been through hell already. This is different. Knowing your mother abandoned you, that's something you can hate, something you can be angry at. But knowing she loved you, that she died trying to protect you, that she was taken from you by someone you lived with for 12 years. Bear shook his head. That's the kind of thing that breaks people. So what do? Wrench asked. We be there. We hold him up. We don't let him fall. Bear looked around the room. This boy has nobody, no family, no support system, just us. And if we're going to be his family, we need to act like it. What does that mean? It means we show up. Every day, not just when it's convenient, not just when there's a crisis. Every single day we show that boy what family looks like. Bear, Stone's voice was careful. There's something else we need to discuss. What? The FBI is going to want to talk to Ethan about everything he knows, everything he saw. That means interviews, depositions, maybe a trial. Over my dead body. It's not that simple. He's a material witness. His testimony could be crucial to putting Derek away for life. He's 12 years old. He's been through enough. I know. But if Derek walks because we protected Ethan from testifying, then I'll make sure Derek never walks again. Personally. Bear, I'm not putting that boy on a witness stand. I'm not making him relive every horror he's been through in front of cameras and lawyers and strangers. There has to be another way. Monica stepped forward. There might be. His written statement is incredibly detailed. If the prosecution can use that, combined with the physical evidence, they might not need him to testify in person. Might. It's the best I can offer right now. But Bear, Ethan might want to testify. Have you considered that? Why would he want that? Because some people need to face their abusers, need to look them in the eye and say, you didn't break me. It's part of the healing process. Bear was quiet for a long moment. I'll talk to him when the time comes, but that decision is his, not the FBI's, not the prosecutor's, his. Agreed. The phone rang. Everyone froze. Bear answered. It's confirmed, Monica said. DNA match. One of the victims is Sarah Collins. Bear closed his eyes. How long? Based on the forensics, she died approximately 12 years ago, within weeks of her disappearance. So Ethan was 4 months old. She died when he was 4 months old. Bear's hand tightened on the phone. Anything else? The medical examiner found evidence of defensive wounds. She fought back, Bear. She fought hard. For her son. For her son. Bear hung up, looked at the closed door at the end of the hallway. I'll do it, he said quietly. Alone. Give us an hour. He walked down the hall, each step heavier than the last, knocked on the door. Come in. Ethan was sitting on his bed, just as Stone had said. The Polaroid was in his hands. Hey kid, can we talk? Ethan looked up, saw Bear's face, and knew. They found her, didn't they? Bear sat down on the edge of the bed. Yeah, they found her. She's dead. Yes, Ethan's hands trembled, but he didn't cry, not yet. How long? 12 years, since you were a baby. Derek. Ethan was quiet for a long time, his eyes fixed on the photo, on his mother's smiling face, on the love in her eyes that he'd never gotten to experience. She was wearing a locket, Bear said softly, with your picture inside. She never took it off. Something cracked behind Ethan's eyes. She loved me. She loved you more than anything. And he took her. He took her from me, and then he took me, and he made me think she didn't want me. I know. 12 years. Ethan's voice rose. 12 years I believed him. 12 years I thought my own mother threw me away like garbage. And the whole time she was. He couldn't finish. The tears came then, hard and hot and endless. Bear pulled the boy into his arms and held him while he shattered. Held him while the grief poured out in waves. Held him while the last illusions of his childhood burned away. I hate him, Ethan sobbed. I hate him so much. I know. I want him to suffer. I want him to feel what I felt, what she felt. I know. Is that wrong, to want that? Bear held him tighter. No, kid, that's not wrong, that's human. They sat there for a long time. The tears slowed. The sobs faded to shudders. Finally, Ethan pulled back. His face was red and swollen, but there was something new in his eyes, something harder. I want to testify. Ethan, I want to look at him, in court, in front of everyone. I want him to see that he didn't break me, that she didn't die for nothing. Are you sure? It won't be easy. They'll ask questions, hard questions. I don't care. He took everything from me, my mom, my childhood, 12 years of my life. Ethan's voice was steel. I'm not letting him take my voice too. Bear looked at this boy, this broken, bent, beautiful boy who had walked into a clubhouse asking for work and ended up bringing a monster to justice. Okay, Bear said, if that's what you want, we'll make it happen. But you're not doing it alone. We'll be there, every step, every minute. You understand? Ethan nodded. I understand. Good. Bear stood, held out his hand. Now come on, the family's waiting, and we've got a lot of work to do. Ethan took his hand. They walked out of the room together. The door stayed open behind them. In the main room, the club was gathered, every member, every ally, standing in silence. When Ethan appeared, Razor was the first to speak. Whatever you need, kid, whatever it takes, we're with you. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Ethan looked at these men, these rough, scarred, broken men who had become his family. Thank you, he said quietly, all of you, for everything. Don't thank us yet, Stone said. The hard part's just beginning. But I promise you this, Derek Henderson is never going to hurt anyone again, and your mother's death is not going to be forgotten. Ethan's chin lifted. No, it's not. That night, while the boy slept, Bear stood at the window watching the stars. His phone buzzed. A text from Monica. FB, I traced the money. Harrison and Associates was a front. The real client is a man named Victor Crane, multi-millionaire, connected to trafficking operations across 6 states. Derek was his fixer, his cleanup crew. Bear stared at the message. Victor Crane, the man behind the monster. We're going after him, Monica continued. Full investigation, federal charges, but he's got resources. Lawyers, politicians in his pocket. This is going to be a war. Bear typed his response. Good, I've been looking for a war. He put the phone away, looked at the closed door where Ethan slept. The boy had survived 12 years of hell, had helped expose a criminal empire, had shown more courage than most adults would ever possess, and now he was going to get justice. Bear was going to make sure of it, whatever it took, whoever he had to destroy. Victor Crane and everyone connected to him was going to burn. That was a promise. The trial began on a Monday in March. Ethan turned 13 the week before. The club threw him a party, his first real birthday celebration in memory. Tina baked a cake shaped like a motorcycle. Wrench gave him a set of professional tools with his name engraved on the case. Bear handed him a leather jacket, size small, with a patch on the back that read, Family. Ethan had cried, not from sadness this time, from something else entirely. But now, standing outside the federal courthouse in Denver, that birthday felt like a lifetime ago. You ready? Bear asked. Ethan stared at the massive stone building. Somewhere inside, Derek Henderson was waiting, the man who had killed his mother, the man who had stolen his childhood, the man who had made him believe he was worthless for 12 years. No, Ethan said honestly, but I'm going anyway. Bear put his hand on the boy's shoulder. That's called courage, kid. They walked up the steps together, Stone on one side, Wrench on the other. Razor and Barker and a dozen other members formed a wall behind them. The press was everywhere, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. Ethan, how does it feel to face your abuser? Are you scared? What do you want people to know? Ethan kept walking, eyes forward, chin up. But at the top of the steps he stopped, turned. The reporters went quiet. I want people to know that kids like me exist, Ethan said. His voice was steady, clear. Kids who get lost in the system. Kids who get hurt while everyone looks the other way. We're not statistics. We're not case numbers. We're people. And we deserve better. He turned and walked inside. The courtroom was packed. Derek Henderson sat at the defense table, flanked by expensive lawyers in expensive suits. He'd lost weight in jail. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow. But when Ethan walked in, something flickered behind them. Fear. Derek Henderson was afraid. Good. Ethan took his seat in the front row, directly behind the prosecution. Bear sat on one side of him, Stone on the other. The rest of the club filled the rows behind. The judge entered. The proceedings began. For 3 hours, prosecutors laid out their case. Evidence, testimony, expert witnesses, the hidden room, the burial sites, the DNA matches, 6 victims total. Sarah Collins was the third. When they showed the photo of the silver locket, the one with baby Ethan's picture inside, the courtroom went silent. Ethan didn't look away. Derek did. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. The prosecution calls Ethan Parker to the stand. Bear's hand found Ethan's. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Ethan stood, walked to the front of the courtroom, placed his hand on the Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. He sat down, looked at the prosecutor, then slowly turned his gaze to Derek Henderson. Their eyes met. 12 years of silence, 12 years of fear, 12 years of believing he was nothing. It all came down to this moment. Ethan, the prosecutor said gently, Can you tell the court about your life with Derek Henderson? Ethan took a breath and began to speak. He talked for 2 hours. Every beating, every insult, every night spent hungry and cold and terrified. Every time he'd tried to tell someone and been ignored. Every time he'd wanted to run, but had nowhere to go. He talked about the sounds from the basement. The crying he'd convinced himself was just the wind. The visitors who came and never left. He talked about his mother, the photo he'd found, the truth he'd learned too late. And through it all, his voice never wavered. When he finished, the courtroom was in tears. Jurors, spectators, even one of the defense attorneys was wiping his eyes. But Ethan wasn't done. "I have something to say to him," Ethan said, looking at the judge. "To Derek. Can I?" The judge nodded. Ethan turned to face the man who had destroyed his childhood. "You told me my mother abandoned me. You told me nobody wanted me. You told me I was worthless and stupid and would never amount to anything." His voice strengthened. "You were wrong. About all of it. My mother loved me. She loved me enough to die trying to protect me. And these people," he gestured to Bear and Stone and the rest of the club, "they showed me what real family looks like." Ethan stood. "You took 12 years from me. You took my mother. You took my childhood. But you didn't take my future. That's mine, and you can't touch it." He looked Derek directly in the eyes. "I hope you rot in prison. I hope you spend every single day knowing that the boy you tried to break is out there living the life you tried to steal from him. And I hope when you close your eyes at night, you see my mother's face, because she's the reason you're going to die behind bars." He walked back to his seat. The courtroom was silent. Derek Henderson's head was bowed, his shoulders shaking. Bear put his arm around Ethan. "I'm proud of you, kid. More proud than I've ever been of anyone." Ethan leaned into him. "Is it over?" "Almost. Just one more thing." The defense tried to fight, brought in psychologists who claimed Derek had been abused himself, lawyers who argued procedural violations, character witnesses who swore he was a good man. Nobody believed them. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood. "On the count of murder in the first degree of Sarah Collins, how do you find?" "Guilty." "On the count of murder in the first degree of Patricia Weber, how do you find?" "Guilty." 6 counts, 6 guilty verdicts, plus kidnapping, false imprisonment, human trafficking, conspiracy. When the final verdict was read, Derek Henderson collapsed in his chair. Ethan felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, no joy, just emptiness. And then, slowly, something else. Freedom. The sentencing came a month later. Life in prison. No possibility of parole. Derek Henderson would die behind bars. But that wasn't the end. Victor Crane, the man behind the money, was indicted the same week. Federal charges, RICO violations, conspiracy to commit murder. His empire was crumbling, and the men he'd paid to protect him were suddenly very interested in making deals. Monica called Bear with the news. "It's falling apart. The whole network. 23 arrests so far, with more coming." And Ethan's testimony was the key. His observations, his notes, they connected dots the FBI had been trying to connect for years. "What about the other victims, the families?" "We've made contact with most of them. They're grateful, more than grateful. Some of them had given up hope years ago." Bear was quiet for a moment. "And Ethan? What happens to him now?" "The custody hearing is next week. Bear, I've done everything I can, pulled every string, called in every favor, but the judge is going to want to see stability, a home, a future. He has all of that. With a biker club? Some judges might not see it that way. Then we'll show them." The custody hearing took place on a Thursday afternoon. Ethan sat between Bear and Stone, wearing the nicest clothes Tina could find on short notice. His hair was combed, his face was clean, but his eyes gave him away, the fear of losing everything he'd just found. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Margaret Hayes. Sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. She'd read the file. She knew everything. "Mr. Castellano," she said, looking at Bear, "you're asking this court to grant you permanent guardianship of Ethan Parker." "Yes, Your Honor. You have a criminal record, assault, battery, association with a motorcycle club that has, shall we say, a colorful reputation." "Yes, Your Honor. And yet you expect me to believe you're the best option for this child?" Bear stood. "Permission to speak freely?" "Granted. Your Honor, I'm not going to stand here and pretend I'm perfect. I've made mistakes, a lot of them. But I've also learned from them. And I've learned that family isn't about blood or background or what looks good on paper. It's about showing up. Every day, no matter what." He looked at Ethan. "That boy walked into our clubhouse 3 months ago asking for work. Not money, not help. Work. Because somewhere along the line, the system taught him that he wasn't worth helping, that nobody would ever show up for him unless he earned it." Bear's voice cracked. "I couldn't save my own son. I got there too late. But I'm not too late for Ethan. And I'm asking you, I'm begging you, don't take him away from the only family that's ever actually been there for him." The courtroom was silent. Judge Hayes looked at Ethan. "Young man, I'd like to hear from you. In your own words, what do you want?" Ethan stood slowly. "Your Honor, I've been in the foster system my whole life. 4 homes, 3 group facilities, and every single one of them failed me. Caseworkers who didn't care, families who saw me as a paycheck, a system that was supposed to protect me, but just shuffled me around until I fell through the cracks." He took a breath. "Then I met these people. Bear, Stone, Wrench, Tina, all of them. They didn't have to care about me. They had nothing to gain from helping me. But they did anyway. They gave me a job when I asked for one. They protected me when I needed protecting. They believed me when I told them the truth about Derek." His voice strengthened. "They're not perfect. They're rough and loud, and they curse too much, and their clubhouse smells like motor oil. But they're the only people who ever looked at me and saw someone worth saving." He looked directly at the judge. "I don't want to go to another foster home. I don't want another stranger deciding my future. I want to stay with my family, the family that chose me." Judge Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. "In my 30 years on the bench, I've learned that family is not about appearances. It's not about income levels or social standing or what looks good on paper. It's about love, commitment, showing up when it matters." She looked at Bear. "Mr. Castellano, you and your associates have shown more commitment to this child in 3 months than the entire foster care system showed in 12 years. That's not nothing. That's everything." She picked up her gavel. "I am granting permanent guardianship of Ethan Parker to Joseph Castellano, effective immediately. Case closed." The gavel fell. Ethan couldn't breathe. Bear grabbed him in a hug so tight his ribs creaked. "You're home, kid. For real this time. Forever." Ethan buried his face in Bear's chest. "Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you." "Don't thank me. You did this. All of it. You walked through that door. You trusted us. You fought back." Behind them, the club erupted. Razor was actually crying. Wrench was laughing. Stone stood with his arms crossed, but his eyes were suspiciously bright. Monica approached, tears streaming down her face. "Congratulations, Ethan. You did it. We did it, all of us. What are you going to do now?" Ethan thought about it. "Finish school, learn how to rebuild engines. Maybe," he hesitated, "maybe help other kids. Kids like me. Kids who got lost in the system." "That's a beautiful goal. It's what my mom would have wanted." Monica hugged him. "She'd be so proud of you. You know that, right?" "Yeah." Ethan's voice was thick. "I know." Outside the courthouse, the press was waiting again. But this time, Ethan wasn't afraid. "How do you feel?" someone shouted. "Like I'm finally free." What's next for you? Living. Actually living. For the first time in my life. Any message for other kids in the foster system? Ethan stopped, turned to face the cameras. Yeah, I do. He took a breath. Don't give up. I know it feels impossible. I know it feels like nobody cares. But there are good people out there. People who will see you. People who will fight for you. You just have to hold on until you find them. He looked at Bear. And sometimes they find you first. They rode back to the clubhouse on Bear's motorcycle. Ethan held on tight, the wind whipping through his hair, the world rushing past in a blur of color and sound. For the first time in his life, he wasn't running from something. He was running toward it. Home. The clubhouse was decorated when they arrived. Streamers and banners and a hand-painted sign that read, "Welcome home, Ethan." Tina had made a feast. Turkey and mashed potatoes and 3 different kinds of pie. The whole club was there, plus Monica and a few others who'd helped along the way. "Speech!" Razor called out, raising his beer. "Speech! Speech! Speech!" Ethan stood in the center of the room, surrounded by these people who had become his family. "I'm not good at speeches," he said. "I'm better at listening than talking, but there's something I want to say." He looked around the room. 3 months ago, I walked through that door because I didn't have anywhere else to go. I was hungry and scared and covered in bruises, and I really thought, that I was worthless, that nobody would ever want me, that I'd spend my whole life being invisible. His voice cracked. "And then you saw me. All of you. You saw me and you didn't look away. You didn't tell me to come back later or fill out a form or wait for someone else to handle it. You just helped." He wiped his eyes. "I didn't know families could be like this. I didn't know people could just choose to love each other for no reason. But you showed me. Every single day, you showed me." He took a breath. "My mom died thinking she failed me, thinking she couldn't protect me. But I want to believe that somehow, wherever she is, she can see this. She can see that I'm okay, that I'm loved, that everything she wanted for me finally came true." He looked at Bear. "I'm going to make her proud. I'm going to make all of you proud, I promise." Bear stepped forward, put his hands on Ethan's shoulders. "Kid, you already have. From the moment you walked through that door." He pulled Ethan into a hug. The room erupted in cheers. Later that night, Ethan found himself on the front steps again, staring at the stars. Bear came out and sat beside him. "Can't sleep?" "Don't want to. I keep thinking if I close my eyes, I'll wake up and this will all be a dream." "It's not a dream." "I know, but it still feels like one." They sat in comfortable silence. "Bear?" "Yeah." "What happened to Michael, your son? It wasn't your fault. You know that, right?" Bear was quiet for a long moment. "Some days I know it, other days I don't. The system failed him, just like it failed me. But you didn't fail. You tried, you fought, you just got there too late." Bear's eyes glistened. "When did you get so wise?" "I had good teachers." Bear laughed. A real laugh, the kind he hadn't made in years. "You know something, kid? I spent 8 years blaming myself for Michael. 8 years thinking I could never make it right. But now," he looked at Ethan, "now I think maybe this was the plan all along. Maybe I was supposed to lose Michael so I could find you, so I could do for you what I couldn't do for him." "You think everything happens for a reason?" "I don't know, but I think sometimes, if you're lucky, you get a second chance. And if you're smart, you don't waste it." Ethan leaned against Bear's shoulder. "I'm glad you didn't waste it." "Me too, kid. Me too." Inside, Wrench had started up the jukebox. Old songs about highways and heartbreak and finding your way home. Through the window, Ethan could see Tina laughing at something Razor said. Could see Stone actually smiling for once. Could see the family that had found him when he'd stopped believing families existed. "Bear?" "Yeah? I want to put something on my mom's grave. When they bury her properly, will you help me? Of course. What do you want to put? Ethan thought about it. Something true. Something that tells people who she really was. What did you have in mind? Ethan pulled out the Polaroid, the one he carried everywhere now. The one of Sarah Collins holding her infant son, love radiating from every pixel. Sarah Collins, beloved mother. She never stopped fighting. Bear's throat tightened. That's perfect. And underneath, I want to add something else. What? Ethan looked at the stars. Her son kept fighting too. The funeral was held on a Sunday in April. A small cemetery on the outskirts of Millbrook. Rolling green hills, ancient oak trees. The kind of peaceful place Sarah Collins had never known in life. The whole club came, in formation, on their bikes. A thunder of engines that announced to the world that this woman mattered, that her life had meaning, that her death would not be forgotten. Ethan stood at the graveside, holding the Polaroid in one hand and Bear's hand in the other. The headstone was simple, white marble, clean lines. Sarah Collins, beloved mother, she never stopped fighting. And underneath, in smaller letters, her son kept fighting too. The minister spoke about hope and resilience and the power of love to transcend even death. But Ethan didn't really hear the words. He was thinking about his mother, about the 4 months they'd had together, about the love she'd poured into him in that brief time. Love strong enough to survive 12 years of lies and abuse and darkness. When it was time, Ethan stepped forward. He placed the Polaroid on the coffin. "Hi, Mom," he whispered. "I know you can't hear me, but I wanted you to know I'm okay. I'm finally okay. I found people who love me, people who fight for me, just like you did." Tears streamed down his face. "I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry you couldn't be here to see it, but I'm going to live the life you wanted for me. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to help other kids who got lost like I did." He touched the coffin gently. "In every good thing I do, every person I help, every life I touch, that's you. That's your love, still working in the world, still making things better." He straightened. "I love you, Mom. I always did, even when I didn't know it." He stepped back. Bear put his arm around him. The coffin was lowered into the ground, and Sarah Collins finally found peace. 6 months later, Ethan started high school. He walked through the doors with his head high and his shoulders back. No more flinching, no more hiding, no more pretending to be invisible. He made friends, joined the automotive club, got straight A's for the first time in his life, and every Tuesday and Thursday and Saturday, he went to the garage, worked alongside Wrench, learned to rebuild engines from the ground up. Bear legally adopted him on Ethan's 14th birthday. The paperwork was simple. The judge was the same one who'd granted guardianship. She remembered Ethan, remembered his speech, remembered the boy who'd fought so hard to find his family. "Any second thoughts?" she asked before signing. Bear shook his head. Ethan shook his. "Then by the power vested in me by the state of Colorado, I hereby declare Joseph Castellano the legal father of Ethan Parker Castellano." Parker Castellano, a new name, a new life, a new beginning. That night there was another party, bigger than before. The whole town came this time, people who'd watched from a distance, who'd heard the story, who wanted to shake the hand of the boy who'd helped bring down a monster. But Ethan wasn't interested in being a hero. He just wanted to be a son. "Dad," he said, testing out the word. "Dad, that's going to take some getting used to." Bear's eyes filled with tears. "Take all the time you need, kid. I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" "Promise." Ethan hugged him. "I love you, Dad." Bear couldn't speak, could barely breathe, but he managed one word: son. And that was enough. Years later, Ethan would tell this story to other kids. Kids in foster care, kids who'd been abused, kids who'd given up hope. He'd tell them about the boy who walked into a biker clubhouse asking for work, about the men who saw past the bruises to the person underneath, about the mother who never stopped loving him, even in death. And he'd tell them the most important part. You're not broken, he'd say. You're surviving. And surviving is the hardest thing in the world. But if you can survive, you can do anything. Some of those kids would cry. Some would argue. Some would look at him like he was crazy. But some, a few, would hear him. Really hear him. And they'd start fighting too. That was Sarah Collins's legacy. Not the tragedy of her death, but the triumph of her son's life. The club kept riding, kept fighting, kept being the family that the system couldn't provide. Bear never forgot Michael, but the weight of that loss grew lighter with each passing year. Each meal with Ethan, each conversation, each moment of watching his son become the man he was meant to be. Wrench taught Ethan everything he knew about engines. Then Ethan taught him some things back. Stone never quite learned to smile, but he came close, especially when Ethan was around. And Tina kept cooking, kept feeding, kept being the heart of a family built from broken pieces and stubborn love. On the anniversary of Sarah Collins's death, every year, the club rode to her grave. Dozens of motorcycles, thunder and chrome and leather, a tribute that the whole town could hear. Ethan would stand at her headstone, touch the marble, speak to her quietly, and then he'd get on his bike, his own bike now, rebuilt from scratch in the garage where he'd learned what family meant, and ride with his brothers. Into the sunset, into the future, into the life his mother had dreamed for him. Because Ethan Parker Castellano was no longer a victim. He was a survivor. He was a son. He was loved. And that made all the difference. If this story moved you, remember, somewhere out there a child is waiting for someone to see them, waiting for someone to fight for them, waiting for someone to prove that family isn't about blood, it's about choice. Be that someone, because the family you choose is sometimes the strongest family of all. And sometimes, the boy who asks for work instead of money is the one who ends up saving everyone.